Another week, another prime-time game for the Eagles. The Washington Commanders are in town. The Birds, they remain undefeated. Philly fans will pack the link tonight and greet a new quarterback for Washington in Taylor Heineke. It was Salute to Service Week. The Eagles will continue to honor our nation's heroes throughout the game tonight. As for the matchup itself, can the Birds dominate their divisional foe for the second time this season? Brandon Graham says nothing is going to fall in our lap. So the Eagles will stick to the same objective just like every week. Go 1-0 tonight. Welcome to the Kickoff Show, presented by Little Caesars. I'm Ella DiGiovanni, joined by Fran Duffy. It's been 10 days since the Eagles last played, Fran.
Yeah, and it's been 7 weeks since the Eagles put a beat down on this Washington Commanders team back in Week 3. I'm excited to see, Ella, what they've got for an encore here tonight.
It was basically a mini bye this weekend after going from Thursday night football to Monday night football. That's the second break for the Eagles this month. For the veteran players, they like it. It was keeps their bodies fresh. They time to heal and stay healthy. And also, it's an opportunity for some self-scouting as well, Fran.
Yeah, we saw what this team was like the last time they came off a bye week, and that was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They did an outstanding job with wrinkles on both sides of the football, offense and defense. Some interesting change-ups going against Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago. Now with this other mini bye here wedged in, I'm excited to see what the Eagles have for us here tonight.
Well, players and coaches were asked this week about how to handle the extra downtime. Here's what Nick Sirianni had to say on the matter.
Coming off the bye week, there's definitely something you do a little bit different. There's things that we did a little bit different coming off the bye week. This one, maybe not quite as much because you're not on quite as long of a delay. And so what we need to do, though, is really be able to come out here and compete and practice, and make it as much game-like as we possibly can without, tackling to the ground. But we'll be doing all our fundamentals with the tackling, all our fundamentals with taking the ball away, and then really popping in within the pads today out there in practice and let it simulate that as much as we can.
This Eagles offense remained top 5 in the league, but the most impressive part of their game that they've managed to uphold are just their 3 giveaways, which is fewest in the NFL. It's been important to this team to protect the football, and I expect to see the same thing here tonight.
Yeah, that's been one of the core principles of this team, really since Nick Sirianni has taken over. And again, going back to some of the things that could be changed here tonight, I do wonder what kind of wrinkles will we see, not just off the mini bye, but also the second time that the Eagles have faced an opponent for the first time this season. So reflecting back on Week 3, what did the Eagles offense do? Well, they won in a lot of empty sets, pass game and quarterback run game. Will we see some nice little change-ups, some wrinkles off the empty set game, and then also just the additional use of motion? Last week against Houston, Ella, the Eagles offense ran 60% of their plays with pre-snap motion. That is by far the highest under Nick Sirianni. Is that something that we'll see moving forward, or is it just something that was a 1 week little sample against Houston? I'm excited to see here tonight.
I will say there was a new addition to the auditorium this week. There's these big posters with different players and showing different ways to protect the football. Nick Sirianni said that those posters are actually in various meeting rooms and unit meeting rooms, but they finally just got installed in the auditorium this week. I thought that was interesting, as we've seen how well they've protected the football so far this season, that there's obviously a heavy emphasis on that objective. Well, 11 straight regular season wins for the Eagles quarterback. Jalen Hurts is getting it done in every phase of the game. 12 passing touchdowns, 6 rushing. He's been a tall task for opposing defenses to slow down, Fran, and in Week 3, the Washington Commanders had a tough time stopping him, and he might be right back on the horse here tonight.
Yeah, and that's why I'm fascinated to see what Washington's plan of attack will be. Because if you watch them early in the season before they played the Eagles, they were very aggressive. A lot of blitzing, a lot of exotic looks from a pressure standpoint. And then they kind of cooled off against the Eagles. They backed off a little bit. Early in that game, they sent a couple blitzes and had some success. But after that, they stopped. And I do wonder, will we see more blitzing from Washington tonight? That has been a consistent theme over the last few opponents the Eagles have faced. Houston blitzed more than they normally do. Pittsburgh blitzed more than they normally do. Will we see that from Jack Del Rio? My guess, they'll be a little bit more aggressive, and we'll see some more blitzing from that unit. But that's something that we'll be monitoring, especially on third down here in this game.
Players and coaches this week had to answer a lot of questions about how do you stay mentally sharp when you have this weird extended in-between time after coming off a bye. Now, is it just a storyline? It seemed so, because players were locked in, coaches were locked in. Jalen Hurts himself saying, we are taking it up a notch tonight.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts, we know that is his mantra. He is always going to go 1 week at a time. And Ella, you're going to like this. One stat that I saw this week, just kind of digging through some numbers, we know how much this scheme benefits players, especially Jalen Hurts. But if you rip away all the bells and whistles and you strip this offense down to its studs, you take away the screen game, the RPOs, play action, and you say, what is Jalen Hurts like on just his straight dropbacks? Well, he, of all of his straight dropbacks here so far this season, is number 1 in the NFL amongst quarterbacks with adjusted completion percentage. That means if you factor out all of the drops and you say, well, how accurate, how good is his ball placement week after week, down after down, Jalen Hurts, number 1 in the NFL. I feel like that really speaks to the improvements he has made here in year 2 in this scheme.
Miles Sanders has had quite the season so far. He's the leader of this running back group, just stacking strong performance one after another. Now, he's going to present a huge challenge for this Washington defense tonight. Obviously, their defensive line is one of the best in the league, but are they able to stop the run? Could be a big night for Sanders.
Yeah, they've been one of the more solid teams against the run throughout the course of the season. They've done a nice job of limiting explosive plays on the ground. And really, when you look back at this Eagles offense on a game-by-game standpoint, their worst rushing performance was in Week 3 against this front. So I would guess, looking into this, going into the game plan, what are the objectives? I think the Eagles are going to want to try and make sure that they come out on the winning side of that ledger tonight. I would expect a bigger game for Miles Sanders. I believe he only hit 43 yards rushing back in Week 3 against this Commanders defense, led by Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen on the inside.
Now, the last time this Eagles team played the Commanders, it was Devontae Smith's day. Tonight's his birthday, so maybe a big celebration for him at the link. He had 8 receptions, 169 yards, and a touchdown. So I'm curious to see how they prepare for the Eagles' offensive attack tonight, because now they've had experience with Devontae Smith, but since that Week 3 performance from him, it's been big games from A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert that they have to account for, too.
Yeah, Devontae Smith, 21.1 yards per catch against Washington back in Week 3. He had a couple of 40-plus yard catches down the field. So I think when you look at Devontae, yeah, he's got the ability to beat you in a lot of different ways. But don't forget, A.J. Brown also had a big day in that performance against the Washington Commanders as well. He had his first touchdown in Eagles green. But to me, this really kind of sets up a fascinating matchup, because when I look at Kendall Fuller, an outside corner for Washington, and the young player, Benjamin St-Juste, in his second year, he actually got his first start on the outside in Week 3 against the Eagles. And despite all of the yardage put up by those Eagles pass catchers, I thought St-Juste fared pretty well. So I think that sets up a fascinating matchup here between Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and then Benjamin St-Juste and Kendall Fuller. For the Eagles fans watching, say, who is St-Juste? Well, Washington felt confident putting him one-on-one against Justin Jefferson, shadowing Jefferson last week against Minnesota. And Jefferson certainly got his yards, but I thought St-Juste had a really inspiring performance and something to build on here for the young corner moving forward. It's going to be a fun matchup tonight.
How do the 8-0 Eagles stay humble? A.J. Brown shared his thoughts.
Don't believe in your own hype, you know. For me personally, that's what I do. I don't believe in my own hype, man. You know, we got good players around this team who hold everybody accountable and are humble, but most importantly, hungry. You know, we try not, like I said, the media it's just how you perceive it. You know, perception is everything. Of course, you want to hear good things about you and all that stuff, but you know, you also got to come to work, man. We are professionals, and whoever we're playing, they're gonna show us our best. They're gonna give us like their best. So, you know, either we humble ourselves or somebody else will humble us. So.
As we bring in these offensive starters, Fran, the health of the team is number 1. And unfortunately, on the offensive side of the football, all the starters are good to go. That's a gift, especially when you're in Week 10 of a grueling NFL season. To have all your starters on the offensive side of the football good to go, that's quite an advantage.
Yeah, no question. And one of those starters is the man right in the middle of that screen, number 88, Dallas Goedert, who's having one of the best seasons of his career, certainly as the tight end 1 in this offense. His 4th 100-yard receiving game of his career last week against Houston. And Ella, the pass catching stuff, that's all great and obviously very, very important for this pass game. But what he does in the run game is so important as well. He's not just the kind of tight end that you say, hey, you know what, just live on the backside over here, block this linebacker one-on-one, and you know, we'll worry about you later. No, he is on the front side at the point of attack on a number of these runs and opening up major holes for Miles Sanders, who you see there on the left side of your screen, for Boston Scott, for Kenny Gainwell, whether he's blocking linebackers, safeties, or defensive ends, even defensive tackles. Miles Sanders in that 25-yard run last week against Houston, it's Dallas Goedert blocking the defensive tackle on on that side. Dallas Goedert, one of the best combo tight ends in the entire NFL.
Who has the second most receiving yards among tight ends, and who leads tight ends in yards after the catch? You said it, Fran. That's Dallas Goedert. Now, when opposing defenses are game planning for him, you kind of think, how, right? Because when you look at some of the games he's had this season, he's putting yards on the ground, he's scoring touchdowns, and he's doing it in such kind of a silent assassin type of way, right? He's putting the numbers in the box score, but he's had such an impact in such a silent, really way.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that he can do it in so many different ways. I mean, he's the best screen game tight end in football right now, the way he creates yards after the catch. But also, he's a really good route runner at the intermediate area of the field, working between the hashes. He ran a nasty route against the nickel corner for Houston last week for a first down against the blitz. You can see him down the field. He caught a couple of those deep corner routes a week ago against the Texans. So I say this all the time, those three-level threats, the Eagles have three of them with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and number 88, Dallas Goedert.
I talked to him this week at his locker, and I asked him about the creativity of this offense, how all of these players have been able to have their own game. And he said the coaches have been doing such a great job in creating these opportunities for the weapons. He said if A.J. Brown's not having 20 catches, or Devontae Smith's not having 20 catches, or I'm having a game, he said they create these opportunities for all of us to shine. So as Dallas Goedert has taken the league by storm this season, offensive coordinator Shane Steichen shared his thoughts on his star tight end.
Dallas is one of the premier tight ends in this league right now. He continues to show it week in and week out, what he does on the field. It starts in the meeting rooms. It starts on the practice field. The way he takes care of his body to get ready for football games, and the way he mentally prepares for football games. And then just his strength and size and his quickness and his play strength, it's at the top of the league right now without a question.
Goedert also told me that this is such a selfless team. And when you talk about who's selfless, let's start up front with that offensive line. They will once again have a tough battle in the trenches tonight. The Washington D-line is one of the best in the league, of course, with Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. But again, they'll be without Chase Young, Fran. Week 3, Chase Young, of course, was inactive after he suffered that late season ACL injury last year. They thought maybe there was a chance they'd see him tonight. They prepared as if they would, but he is a no-go tonight.
Yeah, so no Chase Young. Washington's going to have to wait another week for him. But with those guys in the middle, you mentioned them, Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, number 93 and number 94 in your scorecards. Those guys are so disruptive against both the run and the pass. And so for Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelce, Isaac Seumalo, that's going to be the matchup, is those three going up against Payne and Allen. I thought both players, Payne and Allen, were very, very good back in week 3. A big reason why the Washington defense had any semblance of success against this Eagles front. The Eagles have to handle those two guys to have more success here tonight.
I'm interested to see Jordan Mailata's performance tonight. We talked to him this week at his locker, and he was not happy with his personal performance against the Texans last Thursday night. He said, it's unlike myself. It's not the standard that Stout and the O-line hold me to. And he said, we have that next play mentality, but it's really hard when you feel like you let down the team, you let down the coaches, you let down the fans. If anybody knows Jordan Mailata, this is him to a T. He holds himself to such a high standard that if he feels like he didn't play his best, he's going to let you know, and he's going to sit on that until he gets his next chance like he does tonight.
Yeah, and that's the mindset of that entire room. We've seen a lot of shots here from Jason Kelce and Seumalo and that entire group. That's the mindset that they all share. They all play for each other. But you love hearing that mindset from a young player, and that's exactly what Jordan Mailata is. It's easy to forget, not just that this is his 4th year of his career, this is his 4th year playing the sport of football, and not every single game is going to be straight linear improvement. He's not going to just get better week after week after week after week. That is unfortunately not how it works in the NFL. It is not a developmental league in that way. And so I think when you look at Jordan Mailata continuing to see those levels of improvement over the course of a season, that is more important. Obviously a little bit of a bump in the road a week ago, but remember too, Nick Sirianni took blame for a couple of those sacks as well, saying that things weren't always timed up well between the route concept and the protection and the drop. So things to clean up here for this Eagles offense.
Of course, he did have a funny response to the how do you stay mentally sharp during this downtime, and he said, Coach Stout, ever met him? He said, there is no downtime when you are working for Coach Jeff Stoutland. Well, the Eagles have allowed a score on 26% of drives this season, according to Pro Football Focus. That is the lowest in the NFL. That's a lockdown defense here, Fran, in Philadelphia.
No doubt. And you look back to week 3, 9 sacks against this Washington front, and I would say, okay, yeah, that was a pretty good defense that took the field that day in North Virginia. I think when you look at this front, the pressure obviously has been paramount. They've been able to consistently heat up opposing quarterbacks, and that has helped result in a league-high amount of turnovers. And so ultimately, when you look at the way that this defense runs, the engine is that defensive line, and they have been really, really strong throughout the entirety of this season. I would expect that to continue here against this Washington offensive line.
As you bring in the defensive starters here, there is some news to report. Avonte Maddox hit the IR earlier today with a hamstring injury. They elevated cornerback Mario Goodrich from the practice squad. He is active here tonight. Losing Avonte Maddox is a big loss, okay? He is out at least for 4 weeks, going on IR. And so how does that really affect the secondary? Because they've been so good through 8 games, and he's a huge reason why.
Yeah, he was even going back and going through my notes from that week 3 game against Washington earlier this week. He was excellent against the Commanders and just did an outstanding job. He was at the forefront of a couple of those sacks, not just because of what he did from a pressure standpoint, but his role in coverage and forcing Carson Wentz to hold on to the football. I think this will be a multifaceted approach to replace Avonte Maddox these next few weeks. Certainly Josiah Scott, when they go into regular nickel, you'll see more of Josiah out there, number 33, but don't count out the use of more of these 3 safety looks, a big nickel package where Kayvon Wallace comes on the field, plays more as a deep safety, and Marcus Epps comes down to play in the slot. I don't know that we'll see C.J. Gardner-Johnson do it as often. My guess is you want to try and keep him working in at that safety spot where and number 1, he's been so productive, but number 2, still new to the scheme. Let him hone in on one role as opposed to expanding that for the time being. But that's how I would see this approach to replacing Avonte Maddox over these next few games.
The Eagles' defensive line had a party at the quarterback last time they played the Commanders. You said it, Fran. They sacked Carson Wentz 9 times. Will they get to Taylor Heineke 9 times today? I don't know. But BG said, look, Heineke has added kind of a new spark to this Washington offense, which I thought was interesting coming from a guy like BG who's so familiar with Carson Wentz. And he said this team is still hopeful. Look, they're 4-5. The Cowboys lost yesterday. This is an NFC East battle right here tonight in Philadelphia. They're going to give the Eagles their best.
Washington knows if they're going to go to the playoffs that they have to win this game. There's no getting around it. They need that key win to really propel themselves forward. They were on a 3-game win streak leading into last week before they lost to the Minnesota Vikings, and they had a lead on Minnesota late in that game. So I think when you look at this squad, yeah, they are hoping to really kind of generate some momentum here in the second half. But ultimately, I think this offensive line has really struggled for them both in the run game and the pass game. Yeah, unlikely that this Eagles defensive line will match 9 sacks. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen here tonight, but I do think you'll see plenty of pressure. And even if this defense does get 5-6 sacks, I would count that in the win as a win for this defensive front.
A guy who might get a sack tonight is Javon Hargrave. At least 2 sacks in the past 2 weeks. He has been playing such good, high quality football. I spoke with him in his locker this week. He said, I think it's just starting to pay off. I've just been consistent with my work, working on my technique every day. I think it just showed these last few games what happens when you stay consistent and you keep working.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to have 5 sacks in 5 days, like you mentioned with Hargrave. But to me, and I'll just tease a piece of content that I did last week here on PhiladelphiaEagles.com, the All-22 review, where I did a deep dive on number 97. You see him there in the middle of your screen. It's not just with first step quickness that he wins off the ball. His second step is as good as there is in the league. And what I mean by that is his understanding of how offenses are trying to block him, understanding what angle is the blocker coming from. How do I threaten that angle and make him think I'm going to go one way and then go the other? Hargrave has had so much production over the course of his career, preying on offensive linemen in that way. I would expect that to continue here tonight. The Washington Commanders, they have really struggled in the interior of that offensive line. Yeah, 9 sacks in week 3, unlikely to replicate, but Ella, that line has not gotten better since that point. They've had more injuries, more inconsistency. A lack of continuity is not a good recipe for an offensive front.
Now, a big area of improvement I know this Eagles defense is going to want to see tonight is better tackling. All week, the players were talking about it at their lockers, that they want to do a better job going against the Commanders tonight than they did 10 days ago against the Texans. So all eyes are going to be on the linebackers. Of course, you want to see that D-line get to the tackles first, but can the linebackers do a good job in stopping the run here tonight? That's what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, honestly, it was 11 days ago that we were talking what was the big storyline with the defense was how are they going to replace Jordan Davis? And a guy that's got a lot of those snaps on the inside was Marvin Wilson, who was promoted off the practice squad, but he is not active for this game. He stayed on the practice squad here this week. And so that's a question I'm going to ask again. What exactly are the Eagles going to do up front? Will it be a mix of Marlon Tuipulotu and Javon Hargrave? That's my guess. Is Hargrave more on pass downs, Tuipulotu more on run downs? Yeah, the Eagles have got to get better, certainly, against the run. But watching the film, I didn't feel like it was a terrible game from the defense. It didn't feel the same way that it did watching it on Thursday night on TV. A lot of 4, 5, and 6 yard runs that, yeah, like there were some missed tackles that get mixed in there, but I didn't think that the front seven had a poor game against Houston. I think that there are some things to be corrected, and they certainly can, but ultimately plenty to build on there off that performance as well, considering short week on the road against a power run football team.
Important to note, too, that J.D. McKissick, the running back for Washington, is ruled inactive tonight, so that's just another weapon off the ground that the Commanders will not have.
Yep.
Well, this season in Washington, the Eagles secondary shut down Wentz's weapons. Can they keep Terry McLaurin and guys like Curtis Samuel quiet tonight? You mentioned this on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast earlier in the week, that Terry McLaurin is the only wide receiver that the Eagles defense has allowed to get over 100 yards this season. That's kind of a quiet stat, but we all know who Terry McLaurin is in this league. He's one of the best wide receivers to do it currently, and it'll be a big task for this Eagles secondary here tonight, but nothing that they can't accomplish.
No doubt. I mean, this secondary is playing as well as anybody in football. Despite the loss of Avonte Maddox, I would expect that high level of play to continue. I had Denard Wilson on tape study here on Eagles game plan this week. He was outstanding, breaking down the play of Darius Slay and James Bradbury and the rest of that group. But yeah, McLaurin, that 100-yard game back in week 3, maybe the quietest 100-yard performance I've ever seen from a receiver. I really don't even remember how a majority of those yards were accrued. But ultimately, yeah, he is a player that the Eagles must stop.
Yeah, they're breaking down the team right now, heading into the locker room. And as we think about this whole week, it was kind of a different week because they had that off time, and then guys weren't back practicing until Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So like we said, they are fresh. There's a lot of fresh legs. And there's also an opportunity to install more into this offense that I think we'll see a little bit here more tonight, as we saw against Pittsburgh when they came out of the bye.
That's the thing, is I was just so impressed by what this offense did against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and with all the different change-ups they had off of their core principles. And again, it's not just what they did over the full season, but what did they do in week 3 against Washington? What did Washington see on tape over and over and over again from that performance that the Eagles can use to their advantage here at Lincoln Financial Field tonight?
With that, we're actually going to head over to Lincoln Financial Field, where we welcome in Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, who joins us. Dave, the Eagles have scored touchdowns in each of the last 8 quarters. After some early season inconsistency, what has been the turning point for this offense?
Yeah, it's really been encouraging, Ella and Fran. The Eagles have been great in the second quarter all season, inconsistent for the first part of the season in the second half. But in these last 2 games, they have come out crisp execution, mixing in some tempo, getting the running game going, and really making sure that they are seeing things. And I tell you, Jalen Hurts is so deep into this offense and understanding, on the same page with the coaching staff. Really great execution. These last 8 quarters, I mean, they are just moving the football up and down the field. No panic. They haven't had a lot of penalties. And something that we all really need to consider, one of the most important stats in football, they have been great in the red zone. 404 in Houston. They are 70% touchdown percentage in the red zone. That's top 5. That's huge.
With a plus 15 turnover ratio, the Eagles lead the NFL. Is that kind of margin sustainable as the Eagles begin the second half of the 2022 season?
You know, it's going to be interesting tonight. I think the only way the Eagles really fall into trouble tonight is if they give the football away and give Taylor Heineke some short fields. But isn't it interesting that we have seen these signs in the auditorium in the NovaCare complex? They're new, and they stress ball security. There are different ways to hold the football the right way. The claw, make sure you hold it tight to your body, tight to your rib cage. These are signs that have been in the offensive meeting rooms for years. Now they are everywhere the Eagles are. So the Eagles are living it, breathing it, making sure that offensively they are aware of ball security. And then defensively, when you combine a really good pass rush, which is much better than it was last year, and an athletic group in the back secondary, especially at safety, with Gardner-Johnson and with Epps much more athletic than last year's group of Anthony Harris and Rodney McLeod, that equals opportunities, and the Eagles are taking advantage of those opportunities. So the answer, Ella, is yes. The Eagles can absolutely maintain this turnover ratio if they continue offensively to take care of the football, because I think defensively, the takeaways are going to keep coming.
That was your Eagles insider, Dave Spadaro, who will rejoin us in the post-game show live from Lincoln Financial Field. For this week's Social Spotlight, presented by Ponley Hockey, we present to you a mini mic segment. Players were asked who on the team would they want to take the last shot with the game on the line in basketball. Let's take a look.
Game on the line. Who on the team do you want taking the last shot?
What we down by? Down by one? Me.
Game on the line. I would say me, but if somehow I'm double, I'll give it to Smitty. He a real hooper.
G. Ward is a certified shooter.
Zach Pascal. Slim Reaper in the game, he clutch.
I'm gonna pick me. I don't get it.
Man, I'm gonna have to go Smitty or G. Ward.
Best athlete on the team, Jake Elliott.
Britton, Covey. Yeah, he can shoot. If he was tall enough, he'd probably be in the NBA.
Being a little taller, like 5 inches, 7 inches. I'm just saying. I'm gonna go with Zach Pascal. That will make his year if I say that.
If it's not me, I'm gonna have to give it to my dog G. Ward.
I'd probably say Jay Hurts. Gotta go with G. Ward.
Me?
I forgot about G.
Come on now.
Probably Noah. Tongi eye.
Oh, Slay. Slay can shoot.
I'm taking Zach Pascal. He shoot the ball every day, like 20 times a day.
If we down by 3, I like Noah. If we down by 2 anything, I like myself.
The Kickoff Show is delivered by Little Caesars, proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. Order online during the Pizza pregame and get it delivered or pick up in store in the Pizza Portal. Pizza. All right, Fran, where's your Rico extra point?
Well, I don't want to take full credit for this idea because
Okay.
when I was talking with Ike Reese getting ready for this week's episode of Eagles Game Plan, he said, you know what, we got to talk about CJ Gardner-Johnson. He's been so productive. It always feels like he's Johnny on the spot, always in the right place to make the interception. And credit him for coming through with those big plays. But why are those plays happening? Well, let's take a look at the usage of CJ Gardner-Johnson here in Philadelphia, because we know when they made the trade with him from the New Orleans Saints, it was, hey, you know what, this guy has been a slot corner for a majority of his career. He's going to have to get used to playing a new position at deep safety. Before, Gardner-Johnson playing in the slot, closer to the line of scrimmage, a lot of press man coverage where his eyes were focused on the wide receiver, not on the football. But when you move him back to safety, now his eyes are in a much different place. The Eagles play a ton of split safety defense. It might be cover 4, like you see here. His interception last week came from cover 4, just like this. You think back to cover 2. His interception the last time the Eagles played at Lincoln Financial Field against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the end zone came from cover 2. Also, his diving interception against the Dallas Cowboys, that came with him playing in the post as a cover 1 safety deep down the field. With all of these different positions, Ella, he's got eyes on the football and he can go and make a football play on the ball in the pass game. And then also, he's got the flexibility to come down and blitz off the edge. Remember, he had that sack against the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. To me, when you look at CJ Gardner-Johnson, why is he having one of the most productive years of his career? Here in Philly, he could just watch the football. He's playing in zone coverage and he could watch it the whole way. Credit him for making a number of really outstanding plays on the football, a true ball hawk on the back end of this Eagles defense so far in 2022.
What a move by Howie Roseman right before the season
no doubt.
started, huh?
No doubt.
Yeah. As I mentioned at the top of the show, it was Salute to Service Week, a league-wide initiative to honor, empower, and connect our military members, veterans, and their families. The Eagles celebrated this important time of year through a variety of events: a flag football game with members of the USO, a visit to the VA Medical Center, players were gaming with service members overseas, and there was a movie night for military families last night at the link. Throughout the week, you saw Eagles players past and present get involved in the calls. Also, assistant head coach and running backs coach Jamal Singleton, an Air Force vet himself, attended the flag football game. It was an uplifting week that captured the NFL's commitment to those who've made the ultimate sacrifice. Tonight, there will be other activations outside the link to support our military. In addition, the national anthem will be performed by the United States Army Band Chorus, and the U.S. Marine Corps Silent Drill Team will provide halftime entertainment. I was at the VA Medical Center visit earlier in the week. Jack Driscoll, Jack Stoll, Tyree Jackson, and Gardner Minshew were there to visit the patients. And when both the Jacks walked into the nursing home patients, they all started cheering and clapping, and they were all wearing their Eagles gear. And I talked to a doctor later on, and he said that these patients haven't left this building in 2.5 years due to COVID. And it was just a moment where you just realized the impact that these players really have in the city.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that you get to experience this on a weekly basis through all of your pieces and all the work that you do. It's just so awesome to be able to see the impact that these players, these coaches, these alumni have on people outside of this building. Obviously, what we do, it's a game here that's taking place here tonight. I think at Financial Field, so many more important things that are happening, and I feel like the Eagles always at the forefront of those things off the field, away from the game.
Well, we're about close to what's about to go down on the field here tonight. Be sure to join us on the post-game show immediately following the game. Myself, Fran Duffy, and Ike Reese will have highlights, instant analysis, and live press conferences as we break down a divisional night in South Philadelphia. Will Taylor Heineke bring new juice to this Commanders offense? Can the Birds go 9-0? It's Monday Night Lights, that's what we call it around here. Enjoy the game, Eagles fans, and as always, go Birds.